I got some paper going over here, some very nice 200 GSM watercolor paper. I'm not actually going to be using watercolor though, I think I'm going to be using acrylic. So I think this paint is like a decade old already. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, man. I'm not expecting much. Oh yeah, also have a very nice cup of tea going. You know, life is short. You need to get on with the task at hand. Okay, so I just started out by drawing some of the outlines that I thought would just be useful to plan out a bit ahead of time instead of jumping straight in with paint. But I was looking at a reference, so I found a painting on Pinterest where I thought the colors worked really well. I think copying art is, I don't know if it's a bad thing. I mean, pretty much 99% of the things, I mean, I guess you could even say 100% of the things that you interact with on a daily basis, whether it's, you know, your desk or your pen or your phone, whatever it is basically a copy of some previous iteration, right? So I think it's a good way to kind of kickstart your drawing, just to look at something else, copy it, and then, I mean, whether you like it or not, at some point it's going to look different. But I mean, you are coming at it with you know, your own interpretation and a different perspective. So yeah, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just the aim is just really to have fun. And my color theory is a little bit whack, so I think looking at some paintings of colors that I like or that work well together, I think that works well, because I always end up just like putting all the colors on a painting, and it just looks a little bit messy. But yeah, anyways, I just kind of like the way that it looked. It looked kind of like I don't know, some kind of a muscle structure, some kind of a weird fleshy forms that are going on, and the colors are nice and warm, and yeah, you know, I mean, I just liked the way that the reference looked, and so I tried to imitate something like it. In any case, you know, the acrylic paint that I was using, that was almost, I don't know if it's really a decade old, but it's getting there, believe me. I mean, a decade is not that long actually, but I was surprised as to some of it was actually still usable, and the pigment was still very bright, but a lot of them I had to throw away because it was just completely dried up. So I did also use some other paint, and yeah, like you can see the pink that I'm using, and also the white and black, etc. You know, I wasn't really being very careful because I knew I was going to go back and kind of clean up all the edges, so I was really, you know, just having fun, swishing, mixing the colors around on the paper and also on the palette, not really worrying too much about, you know, that every line has to be perfect or that every shape has to be well defined, because that now I'm going back with some aquarelle pencils, and aquarelle pencils are really cool. So if you go over them with water, then they kind of look like a bit like watercolor, and that this was just to really kind of define a little bit more of the edges and create some more contrasts, etc., you know. And I had a lot of fun with this. Like, the thing is with painting, it's somewhat difficult to control the brush because of course it's quite a big surface, and also the paint dries very quickly, especially acrylic, and you know, it's always a little bit stressful, what I'm trying to say, with painting. But then, you know, drawing with colored pencils on top of that, you know, you kind of going back and fixing the areas that you weren't happy with, either because the paint was already dry. And my sister also bought a pretzel, which I very happily ate, and then accompanied with my tea, which was already cold at that point. I always forget to drink my tea, and then it's cold. But if you don't put milk in, then it doesn't really matter. I think like cold tea tastes exactly the same. Anyways, I went back with because I wanted to kind of enhance the middle of the page a little bit more, because I just felt like there wasn't really a focus in the painting, a focal point, and so I just kind of went back and darkened all of the sides to create a sort of a vignette kind of effect, I suppose. And that's like a good trick to just draw the viewer's eyes into the center of the drawing or painting or whatever you're doing. And obviously, going over the aquarelle at this point, I'm also mixing those colored pencil pigments together, so that was a lot of fun. And also, you might be thinking that you're looking at the painting upside down, I guess, because from the perspective that I'm painting it, this is obviously the wrong way around. But that's the thing with abstract art, it really doesn't matter what way you look at it. I actually like it more, flipped up on its head. So you get to choose. That's the thing with abstract art. But anyways, so here I went back over everything with a calligraphic black marker, and that's really it's called calligraphic because it's got a chiseled tip, which is like a flat tip in the front, so you can get some line thickness variation. And this was a lot of fun. I was just kind of defining all of the shapes a little bit more, and I don't know, I guess making it look a little bit more 3D in a way, giving it some form, and of course adding some contrast and whatnot, and also quite a bit of texture. So I think this kind of hatch mark technique, whatever you want to call it, it really it brings about a whole nother mood to the overall image. I think it makes it look a little bit more gritty and like dirty and aged, I suppose. And yeah, I mean this step is always a lot of fun. So this pen that or this marker that I'm using here is again also extremely old. I've had it for years as well. Most of my art supplies I've had for years, and they just kind of sit and I just kind of neglect them and don't use them ever. But anyways, at some point the marker was kind of empty. So then I decided to just give it a break, because I know with markers, if you just leave them lying around for like a few days, then it's like they have some kind of a reserve inside of them, which then which you can then, they kind of fill themselves up. You know what I mean? So this painting was actually filmed over 2 sessions, I suppose you could say. Because I was too lazy to buy a new marker, right? So sometimes, it's very rarely, but sometimes problems sort themselves out. I mean, usually the way that it works is like if you leave something alone, then it will only become worse, right? But in this case, I left the marker alone. I gave it a little bit of a break. I came back, and it was, it had a lot of ink left inside of it. Maybe it was the paper that I was using, or the fact that I was drawing on paint, that might influence the marker, the ink, or something. I don't know exactly, but in any case, if you just leave a marker, then you'll see that it still has some reserves. I'm rambling about a marker at this point, so the thing is, I don't really have a lot to say. I mean, what you see is what you get. I mean, there's like the thing with voiceover is that at some point you just run out of things to say. So But yeah, just adding hatch marks. Everything is very self-explanatory at this point. And also, I hope you don't mind that the camera is like jumping around so much at this point, because I wanted to show you some of the details, get you close up in on the action and not just have an overhead view. So that was the thinking of that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little painting, and hopefully you got inspired, and yeah, hope you have a good creative day and also a happy life. Okay, goodbye. So I actually signed it also the wrong way then. If I like it more the wrong way around, then I'm also signing it the wrong way, but it really doesn't matter. Nobody really cares. Oh,